Welcome one and all to today's morning service of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of San Miguel de Allende, whether you are joining us in person here in San Miguel or via Zoom. Thank you, Malcolm, for that rousing opening music. I think it was better than a cup of coffee. We welcome all, without regard to race, sexual orientation and identification, your national origin, your religious beliefs, or none. Bring your whole authentic self. As a community, we strive to provide a welcoming, safe, and supportive place for all who enter here. My name is William Dalsimer, a member of the fellowship, and I am honored to be your service leader today. Today we come together for this very special Sunday, and we celebrate a child's dedication in Unitarian Universalist tradition and fashion, a new life, a new beginning, and many new hopes. I see we have some new visitors here today. Please rise as you are willing and able when I read your name, so we know who you are and greet you during coffee hour immediately following the service. We welcome Molly Publicity from Mexico via New Hampshire. We welcome Peter and Robert. Robert advises us that he's a member of the Great All Souls Church in Washington, D.C. As many of you know, All Souls is the home of the Reverend Louise Green. I have a little competition, excuse me. Louise Green, who graced our pulpit this summer. Wonderful, wonderful presence. Thank you. Welcome. We welcome Peter Francis and Shireen Day from the great mile-high city of Denver, Colorado. And finally, those who signed in, Gwen Davis from the beautiful coastal city in Kittery, Maine. Now, are there other visitors here who neglected or passed the sign-in sheet? If there are so, I would ask you to stand, so we may see you and welcome you. Oh, boy, beautiful. I was going to ask you to give us our smile and you wave, but you did smile and you did wave. Please join us for coffee hour immediately after the service. And for those of you who on Zoom who are new, please sign in with your name and where you are from so that we may greet you in a chat room immediately after the service. Now we have a few announcements. First, I draw your attention to the order of service, and some of them are, I think, in there. But we have a very important announcement to make today. Our membership meeting, which was scheduled to take place on November 26th, has been adjourned and will take place instead on December 3rd. Please mark that in your calendar. You will be reminded of it in your orders of service and in your online weekly newsletter. The Holiday Bazaar has been rescheduled as well to December 10th. Please check your weekly bulletin and the website UUFSMA.org for more information. The Committee on Ministry has been working on an initiative to make our fellowship more relevant to young people, families, and the Mexican community. If you are interested in learning more how a minister in residence would help us move forward, please join a Q&A circle immediately after the service over on that side, and members of the Committee on Ministry will help and try to answer some of your questions and share our thoughts. Bring your coffee, bring your cookies, and bring your curiosity. For folks joining on Zoom, there will be a post-service discussion tomorrow, December 12th. Well, it won't be post-service. Yes, it'll be December 12th, tomorrow, and during Margot's hour. So please check your calendar and your website for the link to Margot's hour. We record our Sunday services. Just go to our website, UUFSMA.org, click on services on the top, then previous services. Explore the website for further information about this fellowship. And now we enter our Sunday services. I welcome our guide, the Reverend Tom Rosiello.
It's a joy to be with you again this morning. You know, it has always amazed me how a single small flame, the light of just one candle, can pierce the darkness, can cast light into even a large space. It hardly seems possible that it would be enough to accomplish that task. And when that small light, if we light other lights with it, another candle and another, the potential to bring that light to so many places, even those places that have long known darkness, is limitless. The single flame that Bill in a minute will light here in our community symbolizes a kind of light, a light of love, of acceptance, of truth, of service, of justice, of the spirit of inclusion and of peace. And that light, too, can pierce a darkness, the darkness of ignorance, of hate, of exclusion. And from a spark, from this single flame, we, in ourselves and in each other, each week, kindle or rekindle our inner flame. We enliven those values in our hearts and in our community. It's amazing what even one individual can bring to a community, but it's so much more amazing what can be accomplished when we come together in love and action. You might not think it possible, but we have enough to accomplish great things. Bill, will you now light our candle? Look into the flame. We feel its warmth, and we remember all that it stands for. We each welcome a spark from that flame into our hearts to ignite us with those values and with common purpose that inspires us, remembering how far it can reach and how much light it can bring. Indeed, it's amazing. Sometimes you might not think it possible, but when that flame truly sets our minds and hearts ablaze, with a true understanding of all that can be, what we can do, especially together, it just melts down barriers within us and opens our hearts with new love and real generosity. Something wonderful happens when we come together each week, when we light a single flame. May we experience that today and every day and in our lives, both individually and collectively. And now, with this light burning, we come together in worship, recognizing that this is indeed a beautiful day, a day that is a gift, and we rejoice in it together. We open our hearts and minds to what is and what can be. We enter into this space and time joyfully, with hearts filled with gratitude for the many gifts of life. We know there will be changes. There's always change, and some are not easy. But we trust and welcome change that allows us to embrace new people and to put our values into action in new ways. In song, we together enter this sacred time. We embrace not just what is, but what can be, and we invite our fellow travelers on the journey to do the same. Please rise as you are able in body or spirit and join in hymn number 361, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In.
And now together we recite our covenant. Our covenant is a promise to one another on how we strive to relate to one another and the larger world. I will read the words in English, and then we'll follow with Miguel, who will lead us in Spanish.
Allende will lead us in baby talk.
Okay. We respect the interdependent web of life and work for a just and peaceful world. We encourage the truth and meaning, strive for compassion in our relationships, and seek values that will benefit our lives and the lives of others. This is our covenant.
Respetamos todos los estilos de vida dentro de su red interdependiente y trabajamos por un mundo justo y pacífico. Alentamos la búsqueda de la verdad y la comprensión total. Nos esforzamos por mantener compasión en nuestras relaciones y buscamos valores que beneficien nuestras vidas y las vidas de los demás. Este es nuestro convenio.
Since ancient times, parents have brought their children to a place of worship like this one for a ceremony of dedication. Today, we again recognize the precious gift of a child. It's an opportunity for us to acknowledge not only the gift of the child we will dedicate this morning, but of all children. Children are an important and growing part of our community. Children bring unique gifts to us, and we all have a responsibility to wisely and lovingly nurture them. I'd now like to invite Nayeli and her family and people who are here with her grandmother and Elila's godmother to come and join us up front. And Diane, would you, from this flame, begin our ritual? We do so by lighting a candle that represents the special light that this child brings into the world. And every child's light flickers the light of love. And children light up our lives with joy, love, and hope for the future. This light that we will now kindle is one that's passed on from parents and grandparents and godparents to children, generation after generation. We recognize that in transmitting the best we know to the next generation, all of us who touch the lives of children are giving of ourselves to the future. Therefore, in this service of dedication, we signify our respect for tradition and we express our hopes for a better world to come. We recognize that our children are ends in themselves, born in original blessing, not sin that needs to be washed away, and we add our blessing to that original blessing. We gather here representing the larger community into which this child is entering. On behalf of all humanity, we bid this child welcome. Elila, we are honored that you've chosen to share your child with us and dedicate her in our fellowship here in San Miguel, a town where you grew up some of the time, where your mom lives much of the time, and even though you're not here with us a lot of the time, you are part of our community. In presenting this child in this service, you invite us all to share some of the joy and responsibility which is yours as a parent. It's also a symbol that you wish to have the values and principles of our liberal faith be part of your child's life. You know, a name can say a lot about a person. A name is part of each person's unique identity. Today, in a special way, we acknowledge the uniqueness of this child by confirming the full name of that child upon her in front of this community. So, Elila, I ask you, what name have you chosen for this child?
Nayeli Elizabeth Geyer Brown.
Nayeli Elizabeth Geyer Brown. With love and in the presence of your family in this community, I confirm to you and you alone the name, Nayeli Elizabeth Geyer Brown. And now to your mom. Being a parent is a great blessing, but your task will not always be easy, and you may be required to make sacrifices for the good of your child. Will you love and nurture your child, teaching her by your example what it means to live in right relationships to others? Each of us wants to pass on what's best in us to our children, not molding her to our desire, but supporting her and becoming all that she can be. Will you love your child as she becomes a unique person? And just as being a parent is not always easy, neither is being a child. In every child's life, there will be some difficult times. Especially in those times, will you always provide a safe harbor of encouragement, comfort, and support? And if so, please respond, I will.
I will.
And now, Nayeli has a godmother who's with us via Zoom today. And I'd like to give Diego a minute to bring Sarah in onto the screen and open her mic. The idea of having adults commit to a special relationship with a child comes from a sentiment expressed in an old Jewish proverb, which advises a child, in difficult times, go to a friend of your parents for help. Sarah, you're a dear friend of this family, and you've been asked to accept a special trust and responsibility in the development of a child. Will you, to the best of your ability, be present in the life of your godchild and provide care, love, and support as this child matures, and particularly in the event there is any extraordinary need? If so, please respond, I will.
I will.
Thank you for being with us, Sarah. And now to Grandma. Anne, you are so much part of this community. We are so happy to have your family here for this ceremony today. You, of course, have a very special relationship to this child. In so many ways, a grandparent can enrich the life of a child. Will you be there to support your daughter as she raises this child? And will you always share your love and wisdom with Nayeli? If so, please respond, I will.
I will.
It's so true that it takes a village to raise a child. Children need the love, wisdom, advice, and support of many adults in their life. Will you, the members and friends of this fellowship, and as representatives of the congregations and communities that this child may become part of, receive this child into your love and care? Will you support her and her family as they meet challenges, enjoy in celebrating their joys as this child grows to be an adult? And if so, please respond, we will.
We will.
Let us come together in the spirit of prayer. Spirit of life and feel the Holy Spirit that dwells within our community. We pray for the courage and strength to be true to the promises we have made to this child and this community. May we be generous with our love, wise in our teaching, and may we lead our lives in ways which are worthy of examples for children to follow. Bill? Science, let's rearrange just a little bit here. Science tells us that all life comes from the waters. It's water that sustains our life. It's water that brings forth new life in dry, barren lands. Therefore, it is with water that I will dedicate this child. Nayeli Elizabeth Geyer Brown, I dedicate you with love and respect. In the name of the divine creation of which you are a part. I share with you the Holy Spirit which dwells here among us. May it guide you to all that is noble, true, beautiful, and good. Bless this new life we dedicate today, and bless the lives of all children. May she enjoy good health and be safe from all danger. May her childhood be happy and carefree. In her youth, may she learn the lessons of character that make for a good life for her and for those around her. May she and every child find love. May she become a fine adult, sustained by creative and meaningful work. May her sadnesses be few, her joys many, and may, as we, the present members of this fellowship, have pledged our support to her, may she in turn do the same for the next generation. Bill, you can set the water down and grab me a couple boats there. First one. Okay. To mark the significance of this day, we give you, Nayeli, a flower, and the world more perfect we would give you if we could, and the beauty which is always at the heart of truth and love. Nayeli, your life will be a great adventure. As a symbol of our well wishes for smooth sailing, we present you with this little boat. Actually, today we present you with 2 boats. May you ride on the quest of the waves, both in rough seas and calm waters. And if times become difficult, remember These boats were presented by members of this fellowship, and we stand ready to help you sail even in stormy times. And after this service, please take the boat and the candle, and as Nayeli grows older, help her to decorate them, put her name on them. And when she can understand more, use them to tell her the story of this day, and light that candle again as part of special celebrations and birthdays. Let us all give thanks for the gift of childhood, whose innocence and laughter keeps the world young. May this life, which we have welcomed, receive abundantly the blessings of health, love, knowledge, and wisdom, and then in turn may she give back richly to the common heritage which endures from generation to generation. I now invite you to enjoy a song that was written for just such an occasion, to welcome new life and recognize that everything indeed is possible.
The table, leftovers saved, washed the dishes and put them away. I've told you a story, tucked you in tight at the end of your knockabout day. As the moon sets its sails to carry you to sleep over the midnight sea, I will sing you a song no one sang to me. May it keep you good company. Oh, you can be anybody you want to be. You can love whomever you will. You can travel any country where your heart leads, and know that I will love you still. You can live by yourself. You can gather friends around. You can choose one special one, and the only measure of your words and your deeds will be the love you leave behind when you're done. There are girls who grow up strong and bold. There are boys quiet and kind. Some race on ahead, some follow behind, some go in their own way and time. Some women love women, some men love men, some raise children, some never do. You can dream of the day, never reaching the end of everything possible for you. Don't be rattled by names, by taunts, by games, but seek out it's true. If you give your friends the best part of yourself, they'll give the same back to you. Oh, you can be anybody you want to be. You can love whomever you and choose one special one, and the only measure of your words and your deeds will be the love you leave behind when you're done.
We now continue with the regular order of service, and we enter into a time when each week we in community share significant joys, sorrows, and concerns. Bill, would you join me up here to light the candles? If you have a joy, sorrow, or concern you'd like shared in an upcoming service, please email it to me. And if you're on Zoom now and would like to share this morning, please type it into chat. To start with, we have a great joy. Kate Greenaway and Don Kraft want to share, after more than a decade of struggle with addiction, homelessness, and heartbreaking disconnection from family, their son Udom is visiting San Miguel for his first time. The trip represents a huge turning point for the family, and they're thrilled to have him back. Are they here? I'm just looking to see if they're here this morning. Udom, you're so welcome here. It's so great to see you. Thank you. Another joy, it's Paula Peace's birthday on Thursday, so we send her happy birthday wishes. We have had several people who have asked us to remember Paula Heyer, who used to live in San Miguel Allende, who passed away from cancer, particularly Raven, her friend, who we comfort in her grief. With our next candle, we remember Anne Skelly, the mother of Carol Osborne, who would have been 99 on November 14th, and whose memory today's flowers are given. Let's see. Kirsten would like us to light a candle. She's concerned for the health and basic needs for herself, Bindi, Uma, and Susan. She feels she needs assistance, and she wants to thank people for any help that they can provide. We also ask for prayers for longtime friend and fellowship member Maxine Arnold. She's undergoing tests for issues with a stent in her heart, currently at Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles. Let's take a look on Zoom. I see some comments, but I don't see any specific requests. Let's light a final candle for all those joys, sorrows, and concerns held deep in our hearts but remain unspoken this morning. And I invite you into a time of connecting to what is deepest in your heart this morning. And if you wish to light a silent candle for that thought or that prayer or that person, you may come forward now to do so. Many of you may remember a few weeks back, I shared one of the ancient biblical stories, the story of Noah's Ark, with the idea that looking at these old stories that are so much part of our world, our culture, our traditions, with new eyes can bring new meaning to us. And I want to do that again with you today. I want to share with you one, this time from the Christian Bible, the story of loaves and fishes, which is found more than once in that scripture. And I'm going to share with you the version from the Gospel of Matthew. When it was evening, the disciples came to Jesus and said, "This is a deserted place, and the hour is now late. Send the crowds away so that they can go into the villages and buy food for themselves." Jesus said to them, "They need not go away. You give them something to eat." They replied, "We have nothing here but 5 loaves and 2 fish. And he said, "Bring them here to me." And then he ordered the crowds to sit on the grass. And taking the loaves and fish, he looked to heaven and he blessed them, and he broke the loaves and he gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the crowds. And they all ate and were filled. And they took up what was left over of the broken pieces, 12 baskets full. And those who ate were about 5,000. Now, this reading from the Christian Gospel of Matthew is one of the many biblical stories that conservative theologians like to use to demonstrate that Jesus was a miracle worker and therefore divine. In this story, one who magically turns a few fish and a few loaves of bread into enough food to feed 5,000 with leftovers greater than what they started with. In many sects of Christianity, these miracle stories are what's used to establish the divinity or the supernatural nature of Jesus. For them, the principal message of the story is about establishing this divinity, proven by the miracles performed. So you probably find it unusual, maybe even suspect, that I would choose to preach on this story. In our Unitarian Universalist tradition, ministers, even those who frequently preach from biblical texts, avoid the miracle stories like the plague. Our discomfort with miracle stories goes back a long way. You may remember, particularly if you took my Introduction to Unitarian Universalism course, that Thomas Jefferson, with scissors and glue, cut up a Bible to create his own. What he cut out, in fact, were the miracle stories, and he pasted together the sayings of Jesus and the rational teaching stories and the mission of his life, and he called his Bible, that's still published by us today, The Life and Morals of Jesus of Nazareth. Emerson, in his famous Divinity School address, said that our faith is not based on the belief in supernatural miracles, but on a rational experience of the world around us and the great teachings of the prophets, among them Jesus. Emerson in particular felt that focusing on miracles distorted the life of the prophet Jesus and missed the really important part, the true greatness, if you will, of this man. We are a faith that comes out of the Enlightenment, and historically speaking, magic and miracles are not generally where we go for meaning. Okay. So why discuss the story? Because I think there is another very reasonable, very rational way to look at it. For me, for some of our UU forebears, and even for some very early Christians, jumping to the conclusion that this is a story about some sort of magical event misses what I think is a very important teaching in the story. You know, Unitarian Universalism allows for the freedom of belief, the freedom of every individual to determine what they believe on matters of faith. Thus, you may believe whatever you choose about the nature and power of Jesus. There are certainly Unitarian Universalists who identified Jesus as Messiah with supernatural powers. But in my opinion, the way to approach this story is not to focus on who Jesus is, but on what happens in the crowd and what that has to teach. I actually do believe something wonderful, in one sense of the word, miraculous, does happen in the story. It's something amazing, something very powerful and important, but at the same time, something very human. involving no supernatural powers. So maybe we go back to the story and ask a few questions. Where does it take place? In a deserted place, far from any town. And more than 5,000 people have come there for the whole day to hear Jesus and to learn from this teacher. Obviously, the disciples had thought ahead and brought with them loaves of bread and fish. It seems to me unlikely that most people at that time would go to such a remote place, knowing there would be no place to purchase food nearby, and knowing that it would surely be a long day without some preparation. Don't you think they too, like the disciples, would have brought some food, some drink with them? Maybe not all of them, but certainly some of them. And let's look closer at what actually happens in this teaching story. Jesus takes 5 loaves and 2 fish that the disciples have brought, blesses them in front of the people. But we don't see any grand display of hundreds of loaves and fishes appearing in front of the crowd when he does this, do we? If this was a story to impress everyone with Jesus' power as a miracle worker, is that not what we might expect to see in the story? A miraculous multiplying of food in front of everyone's eyes would surely prove Jesus has miraculous power. But that's not what happened, is it? After the loaves and fishes are blessed, they are passed in baskets by the disciples to the crowd, and it's in the crowd that something happens. What we know from the story is that these baskets of food were passed, everyone ate and was satisfied, and more food came back than they started with. So let's focus now on what's happening in the crowd. They'd heard the words of Jesus all day, likely words that centered on love of your fellow human being and caring for them, a message that Jesus regularly preached in these gatherings. Before the baskets are passed, the crowd sees the generosity of Jesus and the disciples sharing all that they have with them. So what might have happened in the crowd? Well, surely as the baskets passed to people who were moved by the message of the day and who brought extra food with them, they would add it to the basket so that those who did not bring food would also have something to eat. For me, the message here is, if we all do our part, we have enough to accomplish the task. In fact, we have more than enough. Okay, let's back up again and look with more details at the actions of the principal players other than the crowd in the story. We see the disciples and Jesus. There's a perceived problem. It's gotten late, and people are getting hungry. The disciples, who we know from so many other biblical stories, are often the worrying type, the naysayers. They see the task of feeding all those people as great. Their personal resources are small, and they assume that there are not, maybe don't even consider the possibility that there might be in the crowd the resources to feed everyone. So what's the answer to the problem for the disciples? Don't try to feed them. Don't do anything, it'll fail. Instead, send them away. Don't take on a project that's likely to fail. Yes, they have a little that they can give, but it's nowhere near enough, and they conclude they can't do it all, and therefore they should do nothing. This kind of thinking is sometimes called scarcity thinking. It can be the bane of many organizations, and churches and synagogues and fellowships, I think, are particularly susceptible to it. I'm sure many of you, especially if you've served on boards, know what I'm talking about. You have probably participated in some scarcity thinking yourself. You go into a meeting with your thoughts focused on at least what you perceive as the lack of resources. That's where scarcity thinkers always start. Before you even get to discussing some project, the very first thing said is, we don't have the money. So often on a personal level and as a community, we think of our resources as scarce. We hold tight to what we have, even when we have plenty, such that we could share without depriving ourselves. We think surely what we have is not enough to accomplish the project. On the other hand, if even one person gives generously, it sends a message. It says, I'm doing what I can. I know there are others here who can do the same. In the gospel story, Jesus rejects scarcity thinking. He rejects the idea that it's best just to send everyone away and not try. Instead, if you really look at that story, what he says is, we're going to do what we can, the best we can with what we have, and we'll see what happens. Sometimes you can accomplish a great deal when you start with just a little. He trusts in abundance and generosity, and therefore he believes, even without much evidence to support the conclusion at that point, that the great task of feeding thousands can be accomplished with the collective means of those gathered. Why does he think this? Because he is an abundant thinker. Abundant thinkers are not overwhelmed by the magnitude of a problem. They believe that we have more resources to meet the challenges than we might at first think. They see that everyone's contribution is important. Some can give great amounts, others little. Some can give nothing, but others will then give for them. They see the potential, the possibility, rather than forecast gloom. They look around them and see abundance and think how they can bring that to do some good work. And they trust others in the community will help. So often in churches and other organizations, the scarcity model of thinking prevails. And great things that really could happen don't. It's true that no organization can do it all, and I'm not saying we need to be totally impractical, but we need to avoid the downward spiral of scarcity thinking. Essentially, when we engage in it, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You'll miss the abundance all around you, the abundance that we can call upon to meet challenges. You know, we can simply become paralyzed by scarcity thinking. Good ideas just get weighed down by naysayers, the scarcity thinkers. But I know that abundant thinking has not only fed the poor and helped those in all kinds of immediate needs, but it has helped folks look to the future and develop good and needed programs, hired good ministers and staff to support the needs of the community, and trusted that much more was possible and could be done, and that blessings would flow from those accomplishments, and they would be abundant. I want to take your mind back here. Do you remember what happened during the really beginning of COVID? It's sort of a loaves and fishes story. Many in our greater community were lost their jobs, and they were in need of help with food. This congregation wanted to help, as did many others in the community, and our board offered essentially a challenge grant of $5,000 to get others to come on board, which was an expression I believed that we could do more, or they believed we could do more. And what came out of that? Another $80,000. Probably far more than the people who voted on that $5,000 believed would be possible. I'm sure some people thought, we can't do much, we don't have much resources, but surely what happened was that some folks believed in the project and they believed that resources could be found. They approached the problem with a can-do attitude and from the standpoint of abundance rather than scarcity. They knew there were donors who would be generous, and lots of people were fed based on the generosity inspired, not just in this fellowship, but in this whole community. Great things happen in communities that engage in abundant thinking and cultivate generosity. Almost nothing happens in communities that are exclusively scarcity thinkers. It's true that as individuals, as a community, we often feel inadequate and not up to the task, not the right one for the task. We think we don't have the skills, or what we can contribute won't make a difference. We underestimate ourselves and those around us. We sell ourselves short and our community short. And that scarcity thinking can hold us back from doing so much good. What I believe is that Jesus sees the potential for abundant sharing in the crowd. I think what Jesus is teaching in the story is that you can do more than you think. Doing what you can is important, it makes a difference, and if everyone does what they can, there will be enough to do what needs to be done. At every level, in our personal lives, in our community, even on the world stage, it's so easy to fall into scarcity thinking. And the consequences of that kind of thinking can hold us back from so many important, even life-saving things. Right now, the world faces the horrors of war and human suffering. We also face rising hate and violence. Sometimes it feels like we as individuals, as a community even, can do nothing. But my heart tells me that that's not true. A kind, rather than an angry word denouncing anti-Semitism and anti-Muslim hate, standing in solidarity with one who is discriminated against, making even a small donation to help those displaced, injured, in need of food, makes a difference. You know, perhaps several of you, many years ago, back when I was in divinity school, read Peter Unger's very disturbing book, Living High and Letting Die, which is full of profound examples of how if we each did our part, there would be enough to accomplish amazing things. He tells one story that sticks with me, that each year 3 million children die of dehydration and diarrhea caused by a disease which can be cured by a dose of a medication that costs 15 cents per child. Similarly, if every person who lives well in the world contributed what they spent in groceries in 1 week, hunger would be completely eliminated. It's the story of the loaves and fishes again and again. Together, we have enough to do what needs to be done. This fellowship is in a time of exciting transition. I'm sure there will be questions, and are questions, about resources. What can we afford? And yet our own history reminds us that abundant thinking can make so much more possible. My message to you as a community and as individuals is to open your eyes every day to the possibility of abundance. We can't let scarcity thinking creep in. Trust in yourself and in your community. Give more to get more, and that's true whether we're talking about love or money, and be grateful for the abundance all around you. For me, sometimes it's actually hard to believe that we can even fall into patterns of scarcity thinking when we live in such abundance. I believe great things happen when we recognize our blessings and use them generously, be it our love, our talents, or our money. We have so much to give, to share. We see what doing can make possible. We see it in our commitment to children, like the one we dedicated today. These are tough times in many ways. It can be discouraging. But if we come from a place of abundance, we can do more. Not everything, but something really significant. We can give more. We can love more. We can even laugh more. Scarcity thinking results in miserliness, negativism, and disappointment. Abundant thinking is based in gratitude and leads to generosity and accomplishment. With a grateful heart and a generous spirit based in the mindset of abundance, so much is possible. The 13th century theologian Meister Eckhart once said, "If the only prayer we ever said was thank you, that would be enough." Now, why do you think a man who prayed all the time would say that? Surely because he knew that it was from this place of generosity we see the abundance of our lives and our world, and all else is possible. So please conclude this sermon with me by singing a hymn of gratitude. Number 3 in our Spanish hymnal, Gracias por el amor. The words will appear on the screen, and as much as I would like to invite you to stand to sing, I'm going to ask you just to sit up in your chairs so the folks in the back can see the words too.
Gracias por el amor del cielo, gracias por el inmenso mar, gracias por el cantar del bosque, aleluya. Gracias por el amor del mundo. Gracias por la felicidad, gracias por toda mi familia, aleluya. Gracias por toda la hermosura, gracias por nuestra juventud. Gracias por la amistad de todos. Aleluya. Gracias por este nuevo día. Gracias por nuestra gran unión. Gracias por todas las bondades.
I am now here to ask for your generosity to support growth and change. I don't know whether I could be as inspiring as Tom just was, but please stick with me for a moment. The words of today's opening hymn remind us, don't be afraid of some change. Enter, rejoice, and come in. As we age, as all of us are doing at this very moment, we experience inevitable physical changes. We stoically work against some, try to control many, and accept others. We need the strength of community to identify, make, and face our own changing needs and those of a warming world. For over 35 years, this fellowship has been changing. We recently created a social justice foundation to seek expanded funding to support some of the unmet needs of our Mexican neighbors. We hired our first part-time minister 4 years ago and have heard inspiring and provocative services. We have grown to over 200 members. At the outset of the COVID crisis, we developed a Zoom presence, able to broadcast our high-quality Sunday services to members and friends isolated in their homes in 3 countries. We created an endowment fund which seeks legacy giving to ensure a Unitarian Universalist presence in San Miguel into the future. We expanded our children's program to reach out to bilingual youth, for it is the children who will define our future. With the support of interested members and through potential grants, we are about to embark on a search for a UU minister in residence. We will identify a bilingual minister for a defined period of time to assist our part-time minister in multiple ways. But now down to business. I was sent here to ask you for a less lofty form of change, but change nevertheless. Change that is essential for the life and growth of this fellowship. Let's get real. The lofty changes in this Unitarian Universalist fellowship for which we strive come at a financial cost. Now I'm asking you to do something, as Tom has inspired us, to dig deep in your pockets or your purse and find not only the change at the bottom, but even some peso bills to offer today to collectively support this fellowship in all its work. In the words of UU Kristen Collins, we give to remind ourselves how many gifts we have to offer. We give to remember that we are a part of something bigger than ourselves. We give because we believe in music and sacred space. We give with a faith that together we have enough. Your gifts will now be gratefully received.
Thank you for being part of our service today, and thank you so much for your support. Also, we hope you'll be back next week. We have a really special service. We'll be doing Transgender Remembrance Day, and leading the service will be certainly Mexico's most famous trans woman, Morgana Love, will be here singing and being interviewed as well. The service will be really bilingual, so bring your Mexicans, your Spanish-speaking friends, particularly those who have family members or themselves may identify with the trans community. Also reminded of the meetings after the service today, a discussion of the Minister in Residence program will be over here, and I believe also will be on Zoom today after the service, so stick around on Zoom. And also, take a look at all that's going on in the week. You'll note that after a bit of travel, I'm back with the Tuesday discussion group, which is at 9:30 on Zoom. No matter where you are, you'll get another notice about that. But anybody who'd like to join in that, you're welcome, as well as the many other activities during the week. I'd like to close with some words from Unitarian minister and author Edward Everett Hale. Wrote these about 100 years ago, I think. He said, I'm only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but still I can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do the something that I can do. We now extinguish the flame that we kindled at the beginning of the service, but not the light. That we carry with us in our hearts. And may peace be with you till we meet again.